I want to welcome our viewers to the Perry Stone YouTube channel. Now, for many, many weeks, we have received emails and phone calls with individuals asking our staff, does Perry have any direct word on the coming presidential election for 2020? Now, first of all, why would people contact me and want to know, is there any quote-unquote word about the election? Well, it has to actually do with things that we have said in the past prior to the main presidential elections. Now, for those of you that are just starting to keep up with us through YouTube, or maybe you've just become acquainted with us through our Manifest telecast, what I'm about to share with you, you probably won't know anything about. If you've read some of our older books, you will be aware of this, that for many, many years, actually beginning in 1992, during every main presidential year, for some reason, I would receive a direct word on the pattern of that particular president, or in some instances, who was going to win that election. And I remember that it has been these, or should I say it this way, it has been these predictions that actually made us quite known in the realm of the prophetic, because up till the point since 1992, what we have shared with people seemed to always be the pattern. Now, I'm not going to rehash, it would take way too long to do that, but in 1992, immediately after the election of Bill Clinton, I was in prayer in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee for one of our big conferences, and I received a word that the Spirit, the same Spirit that had been on the couple Ahab and Jezebel in the Old Testament, was coming on the United States. Well, I did a study of 9 parallels that happened in the days of Ahab and Jezebel that actually repeated themselves in the administration of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Now, I'm not calling them Ahab and Jezebel. I'm simply saying it was a pattern that developed. The only place in the Bible that mentions a lying spirit coming against anyone was a lying spirit that came against Ahab. And of course, President Clinton was accused of lying under oath. This is only an example of what I could share with you on that. But again, that's in the past. Now, in the year 2000, when President Bush was running against Al Gore, I received a word on a Thursday when a Jewish man came to pray for me, and I began to pray in the Spirit, and he interpreted what I was saying. I was speaking Aramaic, and he understood it, and he said, you're saying that they're going to try to switch the blessing. They're going to try to switch the election. Well, I had no idea what that meant. But the Spirit of the Lord gave me a word that the election of 2000 will be the will of God versus the will of the people. And I actually, in Florida, got up and preached several days before that this is what the election would be about. And lo and behold, on Wednesday morning, when the election was not settled, I heard a lawyer for Al Gore say that the will of the people must be done. And my wife just looked at me and her mouth fell open. She said, you said it, that's where the battle was going to be. And of course, we know the outcome of what happened during that particular election. Very controversial, to say the least. However, President Bush was the right leader to be in charge during the war on terror. And if for no other reason, that may be why things worked out the way they did in a bizarre, absolutely bizarre election where they were counting Chads in Florida. Then in 2008, when Hillary and Barack Obama looked like that one of them was going to be the candidate, I did a study in which I went back to some history that I had known that had happened in Israel, and I began to tell people that Barack would be the candidate that would be elected based on this pattern. And even when the election was taking place, that he would, I didn't say it publicly, but I did share with some people about what was going to happen at that one. Now, the other two, the 1992 and the 2000 one, were public, and so was the 2016 one. Now, again, if you've not, you may say, well, get to no, I have to lay a foundation. You know me, I have to lay a foundation before I can get to what I want to tell you. In 2016, I realized that whoever the president would be, whether it be Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, that it would be president number 45. I looked at number 45 and realized that if I took 40 plus 5, which totals 45, and put it back under the Hebrew alphabet, it was Mem He, which spells Ma in Hebrew, which means what? So 3 times in 2016 before the election, I said that whoever wins the election, the entire country is going to wake up saying, what, how did this happen? Well, people began to say, well, then you're predicting Trump's going to win because nobody thinks he's going to win. And I said, I'm not predicting anything other than I know that people are going to say what? Well, Fox News, 3 days later, the lady that used to be on Fox News said, what? How did this happen? Everybody's waking out of bed saying, what? How did this happen? Well, needless to say, the phone and the text messaging went off. And they said, well, that's what you said. I said, well, taking numbers and exchanging them in the Hebrew alphabet is very strange to some people, but it's something rabbis have done for centuries. And it only works during prophetic seasons. You can't just do that randomly and come up with something. And it was definitely a prophetic season that we were in. So now we come to the 2020 election. Now, there's 3 huge disruptions that have disrupted this election. One is the virus, the coronavirus, and people have to blame someone. They're upset, they're angry, there's job losses. So we all know who the media is blaming for the coronavirus. They're blaming President Trump for the coronavirus. So most people who support him believe that this is just an attempt of people raising up to try to stop other people that may vote for him. Number 2, the disruption of rioting in the cities, which continues. A lot of cities are under siege. What started out as a legitimate protest in many places turned into very violent rioting, the burning of buildings and homes, houses. People have been killed and shot in cold blood. And so common people are now being attacked. And in major cities, people are leaving the cities and headed to the suburbs by the hundreds of thousands in some of the major cities. And I believe the effect of the cities and the fear of where this is going, if the extreme left gets in charge, will affect this election one way or the other. Number 2 is the mail-in emphasis. Now, I plan on voting in person. That's my wife and family and whoever's voting that we know want to vote in person because there is a fear of fraud with the amount of mail-in votes. First of all, that has to get to the Postal Service. People could steal it there, although it's illegal. It has to then go to an organization, be transported to an organization. You got people transporting it in a truck that could steal it. You got people in the organization when it arrives that could steal it, because this has happened not in massive numbers, but it has happened in larger cities like Philadelphia in days gone by where ballots came up missing. And also, Chicago has been known for having dead people vote for years. The dog and Barney Rubble and Fred Flintstone, anybody else that can vote. So there's always been voter fraud. It's nothing new. So there is a danger of voter fraud, lost votes, stolen votes, double vote, etc. And whoever wins is going to be accused of voter fraud. I can just about tell you that if Trump wins, it's voter fraud. If Biden should win, it's going to be voter fraud. So it's going to be a whole voter fraud issue when it's all said and done. And I really don't believe, I don't see how they can count the votes the night of. And it may be next day, days, weeks, or even a month or 2 before everything is cleared, unless there is a landslide, a total, complete landslide that comes from one of the candidates. All right? Now, the polling challenge is this. If you look at the polls, polls have not been accurate in the past several elections, especially the last election of 2016. Now, I went through the internet to make sure I would get my statistics right, but the news in 2016, the day before the election, had Hillary Clinton at 323 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 197. They had her, according to the polls, winning by a slight margin, sometimes 1% to 3% to 4% in Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Now, we know that Donald Trump flipped all of those states to his favor. So how in the world could they be so wrong? The night before the election, the national media had Donald Trump at winning 15% possibility, and MSNBC, I believe it was, had him at only a 5% possibility of winning. And there was literally no one in the secular media that I know of that believed he was going to win based on all the polling up to the election. Now, the reason that he won was they said that the rural turnout, which seldom got counted in any of these polls, showed up, and actually a lot of the undecided votes at the last minute swung his way in the independent vote as well. Presently, Joe Biden leads the national polling of polls 7.5% of Donald Trump. But the question I want to ask you as we talk about, is there a crisis in the making, is can the polls be trusted? Now, here's some things that you've got to understand. When you talk about polling, it really doesn't matter, and I want to say this carefully because it does, but it doesn't. It really doesn't matter what percentage a person is ahead at this point with the numbers. And the reason is we go by an electoral college and not by popular vote. Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump out by millions in the popular vote, meaning she got more actual votes, but her popular votes came from California and from the extreme liberal states of the United States, which have more liberals voting than they do conservatives, of course. And so this is why her numbers were a lot higher. So when you look at it, the Democrat, Al Gore, beat George Bush in the popular vote, but Bush won in the electoral vote. And what is the electoral vote? The electoral vote means that every state, when they vote, if the candidate wins that state, they get so many points for that particular state. For example, most of all your major cities and major liberal states are definitely going to go for the liberal candidate. They could burn the whole United States down, but they're still going to go for the liberal candidate, all right? So California has, New York has 29 electoral votes, California 55, Illinois 20, New Jersey 14, Washington 12. We can just about say that no matter what President Trump would do, even if you cured cancer and gave everybody $1 million, that the Democratic candidate will win those 5 states because there are many more liberals or many more libertarians that tend to vote on the Democratic ticket than there would be on the Republican ticket. Now, the point is they have the higher population. So without a doubt, Biden could be ahead in the polls with the popular vote simply because of the major states and cities that lean toward always voting on the Democratic side. However, when polling itself is done, here's what you have to be aware of. Most polling is done in the liberal cities that lean more to the left. Most polling is done during the day, and this is not, please don't take this as an insult, it is not, but a lot of times more of the Democrats are not working as Republicans. And again, with Corona, nobody's working, so it doesn't matter this year. But in past polls, they have noted that if you poll at night, you get more of a balance between Republicans and Democrats. If you polled, and how do I know this? My sister was involved with polling, but if you polled in Virginia during the day in the cities, it tend to be like 5 to 10% more, sometimes 20% more Democrat registered who answer the phone. So you have to look at the polling time when it's done. You have to look at the question that's being answered, and you have to look, are you polling unregistered voters who aren't going to vote anyway? Are you polling registered voters? Are you polling likely voters? Are you polling voters who registered who didn't vote last year? So my point is, there is this huge mix that comes into play when you begin to say, this poll says this, that poll says that. Now, Trump's biggest disadvantage is this. The media, by and large, let's say at least 90%, is completely, totally against him. And every book that's coming out was planned to come out from June to the fall, so people will read it and turn against him, all right? So we know that that's his disadvantage. And even the reports that are coming out that are saying he said certain things, people are saying, well, I was there, that was never said. So we're going to have a lot of disinformation, probably from both sides. It always works that way. But there's going to be disinformation coming that people just have to sort of shut off and sort through and figure out in your heart and spirit what you need to do versus what everybody is saying. I think you know that by now. Trump's advantage is, and this is not in any ways demeaning anyone, it's just a fact, that Biden seems to stay confused when he gets under pressure. Now, when he's not under pressure and he can read the question or he has a teleprompter, he's fine. But when he is under pressure, serious pressure, he seems to not be able to have as clear a memory as a person would that when he's not under pressure. So the advantage is when you see that confusion, people are saying, wow, I mean, do we want this person to have the nuclear codes? Will this person be able to take the pressure of an office that is like getting up early and every day going nonstop? So again, that's something that people have to determine. That's why you vote for the person you prefer, etc. Now, here is a strange twist because people are saying, well, Trump doesn't have the lead in any state except conservative states. He doesn't have the lead in most of the states that he needs that are kind of the crossover states that he helped put him in last time. So let's look at the polls again, and let me give you information that has been researched recently. Number one, 10% of Trump supporters never tell a pollster that they're voting for him. And that was recently done by a major university, which they thought was odd. They don't understand it, but they just basically say, well, I don't know how I'm going to vote. They say that when they know they're voting for him. That's 10%. This is the big one. In the black community in the past, only 6 to 8% ever voted for the Republican candidate, and those were usually conservative black leaders, business people. Trump's approval rating, and I've checked this and I said, this has to be an error on the internet, but it's not, is in some states 23% and in other states 45% approval, because this is a fact. This is not promoting anybody. This is a fact. He has done more to help the black community than any president that I can remember. I didn't remember Johnson and Kennedy. Johnson did a lot, but outside of Johnson, he's done more than any, and he happens to be a Republican, which according to some doesn't make sense. But when you get somebody who's a business person in versus a professional politician, I think that makes all the difference in the world, because they've dealt with cities, they've dealt with businesses, they've dealt with taxes, they've dealt with buildings, they've dealt with homes. So you have that possible difference there. Also in the black community, in polling, most of them do not say, unless they're outspoken, that they are voting for Trump. They even will tell you, and I have a lot of partners and friends of mine that are in the African-American community, and the ones I know, they'll tell you who they're voting for, but there are family members of them that have said to them, well, I'm leaning toward Trump, but I'm not going to tell nobody because I don't feel like getting harassed by some family member. So you have that going on. The fourth part of this is in the Hispanic community. Now, a lot of people think that the Hispanic community is extreme liberal and are going to vote a certain way. However, most of the Hispanic community or the Latino community, where they come out of South America or they come out of Mexico, are Catholic. And they're very, very religious people. Most of them tend to be pro-life. Most of them tend to be pro-marriage, traditional marriage. And so you don't always get a real picture or a true picture when you watch the media. So they are concerned about the gangs. They're concerned about the gangs taking over the city. They're concerned about their kids coming into gangs. So a lot of them are leaning, when I say a lot, I don't have the numbers here, but there are some that would normally vote another way that may be leaning toward President Trump, because he is very strong on dealing with gangs and trying to get the gangs shut down in the city. So the trouble in the city, I think, from what I've talked to some people who live in these cities or in the area, they said, look, people for the first time are terrified that if extremists get in office in high positions, this is going to go on, and next thing you know, they're going to be taking over our house, they're going to be hijacking our car. And believe me, lawlessness will occur in the time of the end, according to Paul in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And the mystery of iniquity is working in the earth right now, and perilous times will come. And that word perilous in Greek that Paul used when writing Timothy means vicious and violent times that you just almost have no control over, that are scary and frightening. So that's kind of where we're at, and I think most of you watching me would agree with this. So here's the crisis, and I want to give this to you. This I can say of a certainty. First of all, I do not believe it'll be settled on election day unless it is a landslide in one direction. Now, you're talking about anywhere between 5%, 10, 15%. And then you see that the Electoral College is so large, that there's no way, even with the ballots that have not been counted, that the other person can win the Electoral College. That would be the only thing that would settle it. But either way, I hate to say this, but it's true, the United States is a divided nation. We're divided over racial issues. We shouldn't be. God loves everybody. We are all God's children. We should not be divided over one color versus the other. And I'm saying it in the sense of the racial hatred that's out there. That should never be, but it's there. There's racial hatred there. We have religious division. We have doctrinal division. We have political division. We have left versus right. We have conservative versus liberal. All these things are out there. So we're a divided country. And I do believe this, that whoever wins, it's going to create a crisis either way. So it's not going to matter in the form of protesting and crisis. It's going to happen. If the left gets in, the southeast of the United States, I don't know what's going to happen. If the conservative gets in, the main cities will go into a rage, okay? So you have to prepare yourself for that. You have to know where you're going to live. Where is your safe zone? Is there a safe zone? Are there states better than others? This is something you have to determine, I think, personally. But I will tell you that my concern is not only what happens after it's settled and the person is, has won the vote, whoever that may be. And again, I'm not predicting either person because I don't give a direct word. There have been 3 or 4 times I knew who was going and I could make the prediction. I have felt nothing on this one directly. And I know other people are having dreams and visions. Well, if I have a dream and vision that comes from God, I'll let you know. But I've had nothing like that for some reason. And it may be because of all the stress I've been under and things I've gone through and the physical challenges I've had. Maybe that's why. But I have had the Lord speak to me about other things, but not this in particular. So 2 things one thing I want to say and I want to conclude with, and I want you to hear this. The only thing that ever brings America together is a major crisis. Now, I hope it's not an economic crisis because that would be terrible, but natural disasters like major earthquakes, disasters, I'm talking about major, they bring the United States together. A terrorist attack like 9/11 brought the United States together. There's a great warning out there from the Department of Defense, the DOD, of a possible EMP, electromagnetic pulse attack that could come from China or one of the other nations in the next year or so. And this is something they're very, very serious about right now. Now, what that would do was would knock out the power grid, and there would be, in some places, depending upon the damage that the electromagnetic pulse would do, there may be no electricity at all for weeks or months at a time. So these are not things that we worry about, but these are things that we must be aware of and that we pray about, that God will have mercy upon the United States. He will have mercy upon His people, and that He will fulfill His purposes to help people come into a covenant with Him. Because the only thing, and I'm going to say this, and I am a minister, but I'm also an educator in many ways with different information. But as a minister, I happen to know that the only way you can get people to love each other is a heart change. You can't pass laws and get people to do it. They resist laws that they disagree with. But Jesus Christ is the answer of everybody's life mattering, everybody loving the other race. It's Jesus Christ. And until we allow the gospel free reign, until people turn their hearts to Him and realizing that we're in the last days and Christ is coming again and we need to be ready for that, then we're going to face these crises. But I just wanted to share these thoughts with you, these ideas with you, and we will be sharing. I'm working on some very special YouTube videos later on. I hope you subscribe to my channel so that you can hit that bell and get the updates when they come out. But we want you to continue to keep up with us through this method. It's a method that we enjoy doing, and we're able to share bits of information with you. And again, if I do get something that I know is a clear word, I'll sure share it with those of you who watch us. Thank you for your time, and let's be in prayer about the election. And most of all, be sure and register, and be sure and vote. And vote not only your conscience, but pray about this election as well. Thank you. God bless you. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel, and never miss a video by clicking the bell to get the alerts when a new video is posted. This YouTube channel is made possible by your generous donations. So to support our outreach of teaching, visit perrystone.org/YT.